Hello, thank you for joining today's international seminar. The topic of today's seminar is understanding the archival activities, right, of the People's Foundation. And my name is Taesan Park, and it is my honor to be here. And I am the leader of the archive team at the Kim-Keun-tae Foundation. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Please see the handout work profile of those attending today. And first, let's listen to the opening speech from the Professor Myung-Han Do.
Okay. Today, we are holding a very meaningful international seminar with special speakers, Verne Harris, Wolfram Hoppenstedt, Razia Sahle, and Chunwon Park. We are starting a big dream for the future by collaborating on archives among the three organizations: the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Billy-Brandt Foundation, and our school. Although we start small today, I believe that this seminar will become a solid foundation for this wonderful dream path. As we launch this event today, I'm reminded of our previous special collaboration and exchange with Professor Terry Cook. In May 2012, our school held an international academic conference with domestic and foreign archival experts, including Terry Cook. And in October of that year, I visited Professor Cook's home in Ottawa, Canada. There I dressed in Terry Cook's, and you see the translated text. Okay. There I dressed in Terry Cook's gloves and clothes, which Verne Harris wore. The weather was very cold for me. Terry and his wife, Professor Sharon Cook, explained to me that the weather also very cold for Verne Harris, who visited them before me. Terry and I have decided to hold an international academic conference at our school again in September 2014. Terry said, and we will do so with Verne Harris at that time. We wanted to hear firsthand the theory of Verne Harris, who says that archivists in the time of digital are above all curators of context. However, very sadly and unfortunately, Terry passed away in April 2014. In great sorrow, we were unable to make any further progress. After all these years, today we are joined by Verne Harris. Wolfram Hoppenstedt and I have been close friends for a long time. I often visited the Billy-Brandt Foundation Forum in Berlin, and Wolfram also visited Korea several times and gave great special lectures at our school in the same place. Each time, especially in 2009, Wolfram and I hosted an international academic conference with former President Kim Dae-jung in our school. At the time, we visited the DMZ together. Wolfram has successfully developed the field of archive use and public history and has exhibited the foundation's archives in many places around the world. Before Corona time, he gave us a special lecture on archive utilization and public history, and he is planning to hold the exhibition mentioned above at our university in the near future. Is right? Okay. Razia Sahle has already participated in our seminar events online by giving congratulatory remarks and also participating through video presentation in our graduates institute. I have presented and interacted with her at academic conference hosted by Yonsei University's Kim Dae-jung Library. Finally, we'll take a meaningful look at the context curation of video records through Chunwon Park's demonstration. This will confirm Verne Harris's theory and at the same time suggest another method of utilizing Wolfram Hoppenstedt's archive and the public history. Going forward, we will work together to deepen cooperation and exchanges between our three organizations. Especially, I thank Professor Lee Hae-young of Myeongji University for the welcoming speech. Now we announce the opening of our international seminar. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the great speech. Right. Next, we will hear congratulatory address from Professor Hae-young Lee. She is a professor at Myeongji University Graduate School of Records Archive, maybe an information science, right?
Yes.
Come here.
Hi, I'm Hae-young Lee, and sorry for not being present there. I had a class up until beginning of this session, and so I brought my students here to listen to this precious lectures. Hey, it is my great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guests, Dr. Verne Harris, Dr. Wolfram Hoppenstedt, and Ms. Razia Sahle. We are very grateful for your presence here today and for the unique opportunity you have given us to explore the rich tapestry of human history while gaining insight into your invaluable endeavors and programs within the realm of archives. This gathering is a great honor for me and extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Myung-hwan No for making this great event possible. Late President Nelson Mandela, as you know, a globally renowned leader who triumphed over apartheid and united South Africa, and West German Chancellor Billy-Brandt, who championed a policy of reconciliation with Eastern European countries, epitomized the ideas of unity and reconciliation, concepts that are more vital than ever in our complex and divided world. Hence, our exploration of the archives of these two foundations today holds profound significance. In recent times, the Korean archival academic community have placed increasing emphasis on private and personal archives. Notably, not only institutional archives, but also the life stories of individuals have garnered greater attention and interest from society and archival communities alike. In Korea, like the Kim Kuntae Library, as the MC announced, the establishment of archives dedicated to prominent figures has become more prevalent, offering a range of engaging programs. Thus, the Nelson Mandela and the 빌리브란트 Foundation archives hold great importance for us. These archival programs and activities commemorating two towering figures whose principles of integration and reconciliation resonate with contemporary global discourse, align closely with our academic and societal interests. We eagerly anticipate your presentations, which we hope will serve as exemplary cases in the realm of personal archives. Today, we are also joined by my students from our institution, my school. I believe that this special occasion will broaden our horizons and deepen our appreciation for the invaluable treasures concealed within the archives. On behalf of our academic community, I extend a heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guests for sharing their expertise through these enlightening lectures. I would like to express my gratitude once again for Professor Myung-Hwan No for facilitating this remarkable opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce our CEO of Nelson Mandela Foundation. It's an honor to have you. He gave us a keynote address. Now, no? You ready? No? 짧게 말씀해 주시고 저희가 뒷구 영상 같이 보면서 또 얘기를 나누시는 걸로 하겠습니다. Come here, please. Yes.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Let me just say you are very fortunate to have a professor like this. And it's been a great privilege for us to meet with him. And by the way, Professor Terry Cook, for me, was more than an archival writer and thinker. He became a friend to me. And thank you for sharing that story of 2012. I haven't prepared anything, but let me just say a couple of things. I understand we'll watch a video. Razia and I, we studied archives. We became archivists in the late 1980s, mid-80s, in a period where there was a struggle against apartheid in our country. And, well, Nelson Mandela we regarded as our leader in prison. But we came to understand the ways in which the apartheid regime was using archives, records, as an instrument of oppression. And for us, what was liberatory was to learn that you can turn that around and use archive as an instrument of struggle. And this applies also to that broader space of memory, where the apartheid regime, like all oppressive regimes, was silencing people, banning people, excluding people. And so the struggle, remembering against that kind of forgetting, becomes part of a broader struggle for justice. And that's what shaped our thinking and our practice of archives. We then, in the 1990s, as democracy was embraced by our country, came to understand that the struggle for justice never ends. And when Nelson Mandela set up the archives where we work now, he gave us just 3 principles that he wanted to shape that we do. The first one was that the call of justice is the most important shaper of your work. The second was don't make this all about me, which is one of the things I worry about our conference, our theme this evening, is that we always focus on these big, powerful individuals. And usually they are men, by the way. And so Nelson Mandela was saying to us, make space for the other voices. Look for the voices that are being pushed away and invite them in, elevate them. And then the third principle was, he said, you don't have to protect me. Which is very important because we cannot begin to understand these individuals we like to elevate without seeing that they made mistakes. They had weaknesses. And we learn from those as much as we learn from all the things we like to talk about in relation to them. So Razia and I come from a generation, come from a particular context. Other contexts might highlight different aspects of this work. But for us, it's fundamental to everything we do. And well, what you will hear, and then we will hear from Razia too. We would love to hear questions. And if you disagree with us, that would also be good. Thank you very much.
It's very wonderful speech, right? 우리 영상을 보시게 되는데 이거는 진행은 교수님께서 직접 해주시겠어요?
이제 우리가 영상 이제 번역된 영상을 이제 보겠는데 보기 전에 선생님께서 잠깐 말씀을 주셨잖아요. 이제 번 해리스 선생님이 우리가 이제 우리 노 교수님을 만나서 이렇게 할 수 있는 것은 커다란 기쁨이고 또 행운이고 그다음에 그 쿡 교수님하고의 그 인연은 아카이브를 통한 인연이기 이전에 보다 본질적인 어떤 그런 중요한 인연이었다 이렇게 말씀을 하시고 오늘 이 그 번 해리스 선생과 그다음에 라지아 살레 선생님은 1980년대 중반부터 아카이브 공부를 시작을 하셨다고 합니다. 근데 그때 아카이브 공부를 시작한 그 이유가 그 아파르타이드 정부가 아카이브를 이용해서 뭔가 이 그 사람들에게 압박을 가하고 그래서 뭐 침묵하게 하고 뭐 이제 이러한 그래서 그것을 보면서 우리가 이 사회를 해방시키기 위해서 바로 이 흑백 차별 이것으로부터 이 사회를 해방시키기 위해서 우리 역시도 아카이브를 사용해야겠다 이제 이런 생각을 하시고 이제 아카이브 공부를 하고 또 아카이브 만들 그런 생각을 했고 특히 그래서 바로 이 그 흑백 차별에 이때 일어났던 사람들을 압력을 가해서 침묵하게 하고 그다음 폭력을 가하고 소외시키고 이제 이런 것들을 기억하고 또 여기에 대항해서 싸우고 투쟁한 이것들을 기억하게 할 수 있는 이제 그래서 이제 1990년대에 이제 근데 아까 이제 그런 게 일어날 때는 이들의 지도자인 넬슨 만델라는 이제 감옥에 있었고 1990년대 들어서 넬슨 만델라가 이제 석방이 됐고 그러면서 이제 본격적으로 아카이브 작업을 하는데 뭔가 정의라고 하는 것을 실현할 수 있는 중요한 수단으로 아카이브를 보게 되고 그 다음에 여기에서는 각종 다양한 다른 목소리들이 여기에 담길 수 있도록 그렇게 하고자 했다. 그래서 바로 이제 이 아카이브를 통해서 흑백 차별을 넘어서서 바로 이 다양한 목소리가 담긴 그러한 사회를 만들고 이제 그것들을 위해서 다양한 맥락들이 만나서 의미를 이렇게 만드는 그러한 작업을 하고자 했다. 이제 나중에 여기에 대해서 토론을 하자 이렇게 말씀하셨습니다.
This is Duke University.
The discourses of modernity too readily assume that constructions of the past are about learning from the mistakes of that past. This is a common assumption, even a dominant one in my country. I've been studying history all my adult life, and the one sure thing I've learned is that societies hardly ever learn from the mistakes of their pasts. Societies, I believe, and individuals possibly as well, learn most readily not from the past, but from the future. What we perceive to be the future opening to us, what we experience as our participation in the making of that future, what we feel as our smaller journeys joining with the larger journeys of collectivity, nation, and humankind determine in fundamental ways our embrace of values, symbols, narratives, and pasts. What we learn from the past, I'm suggesting, is shaped indelibly by what we are learning from the future. When we feel alienated from the future, then mistakes of the past become a foreign country to us. Equally, and for me this is another form of alienation, when we feel overly at home with this future, when its opening is overdetermined for us or by us, when our personal journeys are subsumed by larger journeys, when we feel overly at home with the future, then the mistakes of the past become a foreign country to us. And the mistakes of South Africa's pasts, I would submit, have become a foreign country to most South Africans. Befriending the mistakes of the past, which I'm arguing is of the same order as, if not the same as, befriending the future, is the work of memory, the work of archive. The archive and the formulation of Jacques Derrida opens out of the future. The call of justice here, the call of justice at work in archive, is a call for archive to be opened fundamentally to a justice which is always coming. Open to participation in the constitution and interpretation of the archive. Open to the voices of people, to contestation, liberated from the tyranny of orthodoxy, positioned on the horizon of an obligation to justice and of an endless responsibility before the ghosts of those who are not yet born or who are already dead. And now I come back to the center of memory and where I think we are at this particular moment. Just a few months ago, our Board of Trustees adopted the following vision and mission statements for the center. Our vision is a society which remembers its past, that's in the plural, listens to all its voices, and pursues social justice. And our mission is to contribute to the making of a just society by keeping alive the legacy of Nelson Mandela, providing an integrated public information resource on his life and times, and by convening dialogue around critical social issues. I'm sure you would agree, not a conventional presidential library. But, and we at the Foundation are being quite deliberately self-reflective about this. The concept of a center of memory a center ring of memory, inclines us to the past, to the meta-narrative, to the energy of the declarative, the protecting of the inside. We have to work against this incline. And for us, memory is dialogue. If you sit on a chair in your back garden and think about your childhood, you're engaging in a dialogue with yourself. And the challenge for us is to always open memory to that dynamic. Memory must be contested. Different views, different narratives, interpretations need to be given space. The example I've chosen here is, some of you might know that our government is attempting to pass a new state secrecy bill. And in many ways, it is aimed to unravel the advances that we've made in terms of freedom of information. What we've been doing over the last 2 years is to convene dialogue spaces. And these are very particular spaces. It's relatively easy to go to Parliament and to make submissions. And we've done that several times. It's relatively easy to post comments on a website or to do direct advocacy work with key stakeholders. But what we've tried to do in the name of Madiba is to create a safe space, one where people who don't want to talk to each other will come and sit around the table and will feel free to say the unsayable. And so we've had national intelligence operatives sitting around a table with the Right to Know campaign activists. And we've made some progress. Improvements have been made to the bill. It's now been withdrawn, and there's a new round of opportunity for public comment and input. This is not the kind of work most archives, most presidential libraries engage in, but for us it's absolutely fundamental to what we're trying to achieve. What I'm illustrating here is that the work we're trying to do is not about possession, ownership. It's about ensuring that what is out there is properly documented, is secure, and is made accessible to people.
Produced by Duke University.
Yeah, thank
Online
you.
at duke.edu.
불을 좀 켜주실 수 있을까요? 네. Yes, next, I'd like to introduce the director of the Nelson Mandela Foundation Archives. Yes, Ms. Right? She's going to give us an introduction to the activities of the Nelson Mandela Foundation Archives. Now, come here, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, hello everybody. As my colleague Verne has said, he didn't prepare anything, and I also really didn't prepare anything because I wasn't sure what exactly I was going to be talking about. So thank you, Professor, for inviting us to this international seminar. So just to give you a brief idea, you've seen the presentation by Verne at Duke University a few years ago. And that's more or less the broad philosophical position that we take at the archives at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. So when the foundation was established in 2004, the Center of Memory was established in 2004, a decision was taken that there is no need really to collect all the Mandela archive in one physical space. We say that the Mandela archive is vast and it's in pieces all over the country and the world. And the idea is not to physically hold custody of the archive, but to record where it is, to know who holds what. And there's a particular provenance about why that material is in those spaces. So for example, Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, and the Department of Correctional Service, under which the prisons fall, had a file on each political prisoner. So Nelson Mandela's prison files, or his files for the Department of Correctional Services, are held by the National Archive. And we've assisted the National Archive in South Africa to go through the collection and to create a catalog so users are able to find it. We also initiated a plan many years ago to have the material digitized, but the National Archive at that time was not ready to have it digitized for their own internal problems. But we hope that we can take that conversation forward and get that material digitized. So that archive, which I've been through, is an extensive archive about Mandela's prison years. I'm not sure how familiar you are, but political prisoners in South Africa in the early years, so Mandela was first arrested in 1962, and then he received a 5-year prison sentence, and then in 1964 he was sentenced for life. And his letters were always subjected to censorship. So he would write a letter, hand it over to the prison authorities, and they would, if they decided whatever he's written is not what it contravenes the regulations for the prison, by the prison authorities, right, they would arbitrarily either scratch out the pieces they don't want written, or they would cut it out. And in his prison archives, these bits and pieces exist. They also have intelligence reports of him, you know, so the National Intelligence Agency who had him bugged, especially in the later years in prison. So there are those reports in that archive. People who requested to visit him while he was in prison, there would be profile checks and intelligence reports on those people as well. So it's a rich resource, but we've taken the view that it doesn't matter who owns custody as long as it is preserved and made available. So we have many such relationships with other institutions which hold the Mandela Archive. He was president. He was, after his release from prison in 1990, he was deputy president of the African National Congress. And then a year later, he became the president in 1991. So his records from the time that he was president of the political party are held by the party. And we have access to those records, and they're held at another university, so they're not held by us. But we have a small collection, which we call the cherries of the material, you know, that like really important things that Mandela himself gave to us, or his family, or his lawyers, or his comrades gave to us. So it's not a huge collection, but it's a rich collection as well. So on the day that he was released, he had about, I forget the exact number now, I think about 18 boxes of his personal belongings that he took out of prison with him. And amongst those were calendars, they're known as desk calendars. You can buy them at any stationery shop. So he had them from 1976 onwards. And then he decided that it's actually a tool. So he started using it as a diary. And when we formed the Center of Memory in 2004, he gave that to us. And we've since digitized it, and we've created, we've cataloged it on software called Access to Memory, Atom. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the International Council of Archives open source software called Access to Memory. It's now run by a Canadian company called Artifactual, because the ICA couldn't actually maintain it over the long term. So if you go to our website and you click on Mandela Archives, it will take you to it's an online cataloging system, a portal, and you'll see the digital images, and researchers can search that. So for the material that we have, we've digitized it. We've created metadata around it. We've digitally preserved the digital images because, you know, if you digitize something, you have to be reasonably assured that it will be available for future use by historians and researchers. So it has to be able to survive the various software and hardware changes over the period. So if you go to our archive portal, you can actually search and look for information that we hold in our own custody, but also the various databases that we've created on Mandela, including various tributes that were done to him, material held by other institutions on him. You should be able to access it. I could show it to you, but I didn't prepare for it. I'm sorry about that. But I can give you the path to how to access it. So that's in a brief nutshell of what we do. The other thing we do is, you know, with the internet and web, our researchers mainly are online. We have very few people who physically come into the archive in the traditional sense and sit and ask for documents. A lot of time the researchers sent us emails, and because about 95% of our material is digitized, it's only the new material that's come in that has yet, you know, we've got an ongoing program to digitize that. So we're able to send them low-res copies or even high-res copies if there's a need for it. The last point I want to make is Mandela's passed away 10 years ago. A lot of the images, the photographs, and the videographers, copyright doesn't, you know, we don't hold the copyright. It's held by those people. So we work closely with the copyright holders who often allow us to use images and footage on Mandela for free, but we're not allowed to give it to third parties. So we have a relationship, and sometimes it does become a challenge because sometimes we do have to pay for footage and images of Mandela, but it's a service that we provide to researchers. We can put them in touch with the correct copyright holders. And then one last aspect of the work that I do, I call it fact-checking. So a lot of times people who write about Mandela or they do documentaries or exhibitions, they don't understand the context or they make mistakes, they conflate things, they get things wrong. So a lot of my time goes in reading these things and providing comment, authenticating and verifying speeches and quotes and things like that. So that's more or less what we do in the archive. Thank you.
Thank you for the great presentation, Razia Sahle. 다음은 번역을 아주 길게 해주실 예정이십니다.
듣다가 보니까 지금 선생님께서 말씀해 주신 내용들이 우리가 지금 비디오를 통해서 볼 내용들하고, 그러니까 그 비디오들을 우리가 번역을 했는데 겹치는 부분들이 커요. 그러니까 그것을 보고 나서 이따 또 질의응답에 또 이렇게 보충하는 이제 그런 식으로 그렇게 하면 좋겠어요. 근데 하여간 선생님이 강조해 주신 게 이 만델라 재단 아카이브의 이 그 전반적인 그런 원칙이랄까 특징은 아까 그 우리 번 해리스 선생님의 그 연설에 잘 나타나 있다. 그런데 여러분 그 연설이 번역되어 있는 거 다 지금 가지고 있는 거죠. 보면서 하는 거죠. 이제 보고 지금 또 이 그 아카이브에 대한 설명 보고 또 질의응답에서 하고 또 앞으로 공부하고 그렇게 하겠습니다. 자, 그러면 비디오를 보고.
Standing here in a place that we use for temporary exhibitions. The exhibitions that we have here are of people who have made a contribution to South Africa's future in terms of this armed struggle that we've had, in terms of the struggle against apartheid that we've had. This was in response to Madiba's call that we not only exhibit his life, but the lives of others who have made a contribution. Those could be people who have contributed just to South Africa, to the continent, and to the global community in terms of human rights and peace building. This is a significant place because most of the dialogues and exhibitions that we have are about the future that we're imagining. We have an auditorium the auditorium which Madiba actually announced, from which he announced his retirement, when he said, "Don't call me, I'll call you." We have a range of places which we use for dialogue, and some of these dialogues include where we're dealing with difficult social issues, such as race and identity, xenophobia, access to information, to mention but just a few. We have a reading room which is used by scholars to help to do some research, deep research into Madiba's life and times. We have a permanent exhibition which has a range of artifacts and objects that people can enjoy. Of course, we also have Madiba's office, where he worked from 2002 to 2010. Downstairs, we have a world-class archive, which Madiba donated to this center. We hope that you come here to then respond to the call that Madiba made when he said, "Don't call me, I'll call you." And the call was for us to make a difference in future, that we contribute towards building a South Africa of our dreams through Mandela Day. So Mandela Day is a core of a message where we're saying you can contribute to that future. We hope you enjoy this space. Welcome to the Nelson Mandela Foundation.
In this cabinet, we display the earliest records that we have of Nelson Mandela. These are the membership card to the Sunday School of the Methodist Church. Nelson Mandela's mother had converted to Christianity, and as a result, Mandela was baptized in the Methodist Church. His father refused, however, to convert to Christianity. These cards date from 1930 onwards. In this cabinet, we display the earliest. In this cabinet, we display photographs of Hilltown. Hilltown was a college for high school students in the Eastern Cape. Madiba attended Hilltown in 1937 and 1938. We have two photographs in the display cabinet, which are the earliest known photographs of Nelson Mandela. The great thing about working in archives is that we discover new things all the time. The latest find was made in May 2015.
For much of 1961 and 1962, Nelson Mandela was underground. He was leader of the armed wing of the African National Congress. 1962, he left the country. He was trained as a guerrilla in both Ethiopia and Morocco. We have a picture here, for example, of him with Algerian freedom fighters during his period of training with them. He was not so good as an underground operative. You can see a picture of him here wearing that very distinctive beard from that period. Now, his comrades advised him to have that beard shaved off, but he had become quite attached to it. He also liked to visit people. He went to far too many places which weren't really safe, so that tracking him down and ultimately capturing him wasn't too difficult for the apartheid state. In fact, when he was captured, he was in disguise as a chauffeur and should have been driving the vehicle with the white person, ostensibly his employer, sitting next to him. But in fact, when he was captured, he was sitting in the passenger seat and the white comrade was driving the vehicle. For much of 1961, in 1962, Nelson Mandela was underground being pursued by the apartheid state. He was captured towards the end of that year and charged with having left the country illegally and having incited a strike. He decided for the trial to adopt a position of resistance to the legal system. He said that he was a black man in a white man's court. He refused to recognize the authority of that court. And throughout proceedings, he wore a form of traditional dress, clothing that would be associated with the rural areas of the Eastern Cape, which is where he came from. Here in this cabinet, you can see an example of what some call a kaross. It's more a blanket, actually, but this is what he wore in court. He also had beads and various other items of traditional clothing. the symbol there was a very powerful one, for many years we looked for items that were associated with this moment in his life. This particular item was loaned to us on a permanent loan by Winnie Mandela, his second wife, my Winnie. As she pointed out to us, when he talked about this moment in his life, in his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, he referred to it as a leopard skin kaross. And well, if you look closely, you can see these are not leopard skins, these are jackals. It's an interesting footnote, I think, to his life, is that in his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, he made a number of errors, and our team of researchers have located over 50 errors of fact in the book. The book was published in 1994. Last year, well, 2014 was the 20th anniversary of its publishing, and to mark that anniversary, we put up on our website a list of all those errors of fact. Those can be seen on our websites still today. In 1960, the dimensions of the glass installation here behind me are precisely the same as those of Nelson Mandela's Robben Island cell. We've placed it here in the very center of the exhibition space as a symbol of the extent to which he was a prisoner all his life. We associate usually the prison years with those 27.5 years that he was in Robben Island and Pollsmoor Prison, Victor Verster Prison. But we make the argument that he was a prisoner of the struggle before he was captured by the apartheid state, and that once he came out of prison, in many ways he was a prisoner of South Africa's need for a negotiated settlement, a prisoner of his fame, and then ultimately a prisoner of his own frailty. In fact, during his retirement years, those of us who worked for him would often have that difficult experience of being pointed at by him with the statement, "You are now my warder." And this was a joke, but also a way of reminding us that we were controlling his life and preventing him from doing what he really wanted to do. Arguably, the decisive test of Nelson Mandela as a leader took place in the second half of the 1980s. He was in prison and decided that the moment had come to begin talking to the apartheid state about negotiations. He took that decision without consulting with the rest of the leadership and was terribly exposed. The apartheid state deployed psychiatrists, national intelligence operatives. They were recording every conversation he had. He could so easily have been compromised. And people outside, when they heard that he was now engaging with the apartheid state in this way, feared that he had sold out. And many of the members of anti-apartheid structures began to assume that this had happened. The reality is that he knew exactly what he was doing, and he didn't make a single misstep during that process. What he did in this period demonstrated his mettle as a leader and made possible what he accomplished after he came out of prison. In 1994, Nelson Mandela warned South Africans that it was tempting to regard the long walk to freedom as having ended with the first democratic election. He said, "We need to regard this as a first step in a much longer and more complex journey." And he was warning South Africans that there would be challenges, that there were many new enemies to be dealt with. To name a few of those, the scourge of HIV/AIDS, which was to kill hundreds of thousands of South Africans in the next decade. A global economic system which made it very difficult for that first government to introduce policies which would ensure the redistribution of wealth. The problem of corruption. The apartheid system was corrupt, but what we saw emerging in the mid-90s were new systems of corruption. And he warned what he called erstwhile freedom fighters and activists who were now enriching themselves as a problem that would need to be dealt with. Well, these problems became huge problems for South Africa. And in his retirement, he was disappointed at our lack of progress and kept encouraging us to keep walking, to keep working, not to give up.
네, 마지막 영상 시청하시겠습니다.
This is the office that was used by Madiba, the period 2002 to 2010. During that period, you'd meet global leaders, global business leaders, and ordinary people, men on the street, whose families would have contributed to the struggle. And each one of them, as he met them, he would tell stories and share how he was touched by their lives, their families, how the sacrifices that their families would have made. I think some of the names that come to mind include people like Harry Belafonte, the family of Gia Naidu, who was one of the last people to see Madiba before he was captured in '62. Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and people like Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson. And the story comes to mind of how he told Richard Branson, you have to give me a tip, how you can look so poor when you are so rich. So such stories tell you of the man who would just get humor out of everything. And we have in this office photographs of some of the people that he met, including President Obama when he was still a senator, someone like Muhammad Ali, and gloves that we have, because Madiba fancied himself as a boxer. And he says if there was one regret that he had, was the fact that he never became a heavyweight boxer of the world, a champion for that matter. So for us, he became a champion of another boxing, which was to help build this country. So we are saying, as you use the space, reflect on how Madiba would make calls from here to say, help us build. So may you continue to help build this country when you come to this place. This is the office.
Thank you. Yes. Maybe it is very important, yes, information. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Wolfram Hoppenstedt, Doctor, who is director of the 빌리브란트 Archive. He will give us an introduction to the archives of the 빌리브란트 Foundation, and maybe focusing on the use of archive and public history. Right. Thank you.
There are maybe 4 files on it. It's all for Korea. Abridged. The abridged one. Okay, but oh wow, yes. So I have no film. I have a little presentation. Okay. Okay. I hope we can keep her. And she will have to use, we will use the camera then, no? At abridged, Hankook University. This one here, abridged, a presentation, PDF maybe should work. So just, okay, full screen maybe, is it possible?
Yes.
And then I can move this way. Okay, okay. Do we see everything here?
Yes.
Yes, it works, basically it works. Well, first of all, let me say it's such a pleasure for me to be back in Seoul and back at Hankook University. It's my 3rd time here at Hankook also. It's always a pleasure. And I tell you something, and I'm not flattering, Korean students are my favorite students all over the world. I'm serious. There are groups coming to Berlin. I have to admit, I've been to South Africa yet, so the students there might surprise me, but really, we have many groups coming to our foundation in Berlin, students visiting Germany. They want to learn something about reunification and Willy Brandt, how he achieved it. First of all, I'm grateful. I think most of you saw my little Willy Brandt film, and you're well prepared. I think you mentioned on Willy Brandt, on the statesman who paved in the long way the way towards unification in Germany, in the long way, with this new Ostpolitik. But before we start, let me make a remark. The work in our archives, in my opinion, is all about openness, full accessibility, transparency, and to use another word, it's all about trust. And we have a new foundation erected in Germany. It's a Federal Chancellor Helmut Schmidt Foundation in Hamburg. This was his hometown. Helmut Schmidt, a renowned politician in Germany and statesman, he was a successor of Willy Brandt. And while he grew 96 years old, so it took a while. And in Germany, you have to die before you get such a federal foundation. So the foundation was erected by our parliament. They are our colleagues now. We cooperate, of course, and see each other, and we help each other. And to give you an example, for full access and trust, the war in Ukraine is going on, and Helmut Schmidt was a politician for decades, and he died only 3 years ago, maybe now. And so a couple of years ago, he wrote letters and even gave interviews, but he argued, and we don't want to hear it. Ukraine is not a nation. It belongs to Russia, and Crimea, this belongs to Russia. And so now people got, an idea, a whiff of this, and they went to the archives, and they go to the archivist and to the foundation and said, okay, I want to see everything about the position of Helmut Schmidt on the Ukraine. And of course, and they give it out. And there's no way to hide it. And they say, okay, we are the Helmut Schmidt Foundation, but we are not Helmut Schmidt. And we have to ask, why did he hold this position maybe? But give access to it, don't hide anything. And before, see, in a second, we start here. Okay, in Bonn, the former West German capital, we have the Archive of the Social Democracy of the Friedrich Ebert Foundation. So the SPD Foundation, and all politicians, Social Democrats, give their materials, their archive to this foundation. And Willy Brandt, we see him, the first stone of it was laid in 1967, I think, Willy Brandt with a hammer. So they built it, and Willy Brandt gave his material, started to give his material in the beginning 70s. When he died, his widow, she threatened, okay, she was the only heir, had the right of many of the stuff, at least private letters. And she threatened to say, she was, had a conflict with the Social Democratic Party and said, I pull everything out, it belongs to me. And because she had the suspicion that the party, the Social Democrats, would hide some things, people should not know. And by the way, she was convinced that there was a conspiracy against him. He resigned in 74, and that some of his closest confidants had contacts with East Germany. This was never proved. I can tell you, it's not true. But so this is why we got this foundation, the Federal Chancellor Willy Brandt Foundation. She was in support for this to say, okay, let's give it to a federal foundation. We're all government officials. And so we run this archive. So, but it's still in Bonn, it's not in Berlin. And the legacy of Willy Brandt is the most important statesman. Now guess how many shelf meters do we have for Willy Brandt? Just guess, anybody? 100. Another figure? Okay, 400. It's 400 meters. It's the biggest archives of a German politician, yeah? And so 400 meters of archival material, but not just archival material. I give you also an impression. Okay, I ask you. Yeah, shelf meters, 400, yes. Yeah, so one job is of our foundation. We do scientific research and we write books, many books we have published. And this was the first product of research. It's a 10-volume Willy Brandt edition. By the way, this edition is not rather for it's also for historians. It's of letters, speeches, notes, everything, all kinds of stuff, 10 volumes, but it's rather for normal people interested in history and politics. It's not specifically for historians, for scientists. This is what is a special concept. We were criticized for this. Also, there's one volume about his foreign policy, maybe or 2 volumes, and historians criticized, okay, but you picked things for, of course, we picked out documents for this. You have to, I mean, 400 meters. But okay, it's for greater public. Okay, conferences we organize. This is really for experts, yeah. This was on Willy Brandt's role in in Latin America as the president of CSI. Willy Brandt in the Americas. This was a huge conference. And okay, digitization. Yeah, we have a program, it's called Faust. Yeah, it's an old program. It took a long time. Okay, an idea how many years it took to get, to assess all documents and buzzwords and do this. I tell you, 18 years, but now it's finished. So now when you come to the archive and want to learn anything about Willy Brandt and the Ukraine or his contacts to President Kim Jae-jung, yeah, just press a button and you get the results. Digitization is only 60% now. We're still working on it. So, okay, now I show you some nice documents. This is the letter, the Berlin Wall was built. Willy Brandt appeals to President Kennedy as the mayor of West Berlin, and this is the answer of Kennedy. He makes clear no war for Berlin. You have to find this, we save West Berlin and secure it, but you have to find new ways to deal with the East. And this is why this policy of small steps started in Germany. Yeah, notes. I mean, back then there were no computers. Everything was handwritten usually or typed. And so we have notes from conferences, from meetings with Gorbachev. Sometimes interesting to compare them. We got the material from the Gorbachev archive in Moscow. For a while, cooperation with the Russians really worked. Of course, Gorbachev archive is different anyway, a little bit. So you could compare they met and they take their notes when they meet and talk about the future of Germany and future of communism in the Soviet Union. And yeah, it's good to see the handwriting. By the way, always in green. The president of a state, the minister or the chancellor or the president, the top, they always write with a green pencil. Yeah. If you're head of a department, you have a brown pencil. And if it's only a section, it's a red one, like the teachers. Oh yeah, this is on his way to Berlin. The night the wall had fallen, the next morning he flies immediately from Bonn to Berlin, and he's taking notes on the airplane, and he writes down the famous words he uttered the next morning. Now, what belongs together is growing together. Yeah? He addresses the Berliners, and thousands of Berliners cheer to him all day, November 10th, 1989. This became a sort of slogan for the unification process of the two German states. Now, what belongs together is now growing together. Oh yeah, this is unique. See, when Hitler seized power in 1933, this is a pamphlet he offering resistance. He calls the German workers for resistance in the factories against Hitler, and they made copies, he and his comrades in Lübeck, northern Germany, and they distributed the flyers into the letterboxes of houses. So there's one original. First brochure, the first publication in exile, also preserved. Why did Hitler prevail in Germany? That's an interesting analysis. Historians would say he was right, because the communists and the social democrats fought more each other and then than the Nazis. Yeah, the split of the workers' movement. His school leaving report. Yeah, of course, this is in our exhibitions, and all pupils they come from all over Germany. And when he got his school leaving examinations, the Abitur in Germany in 1933, his grades were not that good anymore, because he was fighting Hitler. He was so involved in politics already as a young man, so he had no time for school. So school leaving. Passport. He lost his German citizenship. The Nazi government deprived him, and this is his Norwegian passport. So he became a Norwegian. Later, after exile, he returned to Germany. He became got his German citizenship back. Calendars, also important for us. By the way, we always plan to publish online versions for the archive. It's not allowed, data protection. I mean, so if you met Gorbachev, that's okay. It's an absolute personality of history. But if he had met his girlfriend, whatever, yeah, it's a protection. It's no way to put it online. So you have to go to the archive. This is, by the way, Erfurt, the meeting, the first inter-German summit, March 70. So this says Erfurt. Erfurt, this was the first summit with East Germany. Wonderful exhibit. The trunk he used when he went into exile. And we have produced 5 permanent exhibitions so far, and we haven't used it. And I promise you the next one, it will have show this. I mean, it's symbolic. I mean, he went into exile with this. And, oh, nice, this is a gift of President Kennedy when he came to Berlin, June 63. Ich bin ein Berliner. This is a box for cigars, gilded, to Mayor Willy Brandt from President John F. Kennedy. And cartoons, yeah, so it's also, we have a collection of thousands of cartoons on the politician. Yeah, Willy Brandt bearing the burden of Berlin and of the beleaguered city of West Berlin. Nice cartoon here, opening the wall with his new Ostpolitik. Yeah? This is a nice one. Yeah? Making the wall more permeable. Magazines, newspaper magazines. This is the famous Spiegel magazine of West Germany. Today, Germany was called. This was a week after his genuflection in Warsaw. Was he allowed? Should he have knelt down? Was this okay? Back then, a slight majority of the West Germans said no. This is not what a West German chancellor should do. Kneel down in Poland. Today, he's an icon for this. There's no controversy anymore. Okay, just to mention it. We're about to develop a new permanent exhibition now, and we have, when we start such a project, now we come to public history, we have the discussion how to show the history, the biography. You can do it chronological way, this way, yeah? Relate a life. Or you can do it theme-oriented, maybe freedom, peace, whatever. You choose some chapters and then you do it this way. And so far, we've always come to the conclusion we do it the chronological way. Maybe next time we'll change this. And so, okay, so we have all these things and exhibits, documents, caricature pamphlets in our exhibitions. And the first one, 28 years ago, it had no multimedia, just flat stuff. I mean, this is hard. Yeah? I mean, you have to see the person, you have to see footage, hear to Willy Brandt. This is 28 years ago at the City Hall of Berlin-Schöneberg. Then we opened in 2007, we opened the Willy Brandt House in Lübeck. This is where he was born, on the Baltic Sea. We got the first branch office, and this was the first modern exhibition. And look at this, so we stage things. See, this is the government bench of the German parliament, at least to give you an idea. And we have school classes coming and they prepare the government declaration, for example. And then the camera films them and they have the impression they're in the parliament, so they learn, they can write their own government declaration. And okay, so at least you can, yeah, we stage things. This is his room as a young boy, the books he read as a young boy. And okay, so we have, yeah, you can listen to him, but we use this modern idea. Okay, hands-on, minds on, yeah. So you can open things and open doors, whatever. But this is Korean technology here. When we introduced RFID chips, So when you enter the museum, you can, okay, so you get the language you need, or it's a program for school kids or little kids. So, and you get different, so you approach a station and then, but still, this is 2007, and you still have to press the buttons here. And today's visitors come and there's point by Samsung that they try to buy and it would work because there was no technology in 2007. But we're working on new solutions. The next one will different. Yeah, also for little kids, yeah, they get their own program with a cater. And well, this is an exhibit we don't have at the Willy Brandt archive. A segment, a piece of the Berlin Wall, but the governor of Berlin, the governing mayor of Berlin, presented it, and it's part of the exhibition. And we're really glad in Lübeck to have a piece of the Berlin Wall in the yard. And well, it gave you an idea. Thank you very much. No?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
여러분 어느 정도 알아들었을 것 같은데요. 개략 정리를 해보겠습니다. 하여간 호펜슈테트 박사님도 다시금 우리 학교에 와가지고 이렇게 강의를 할 수 있고 이렇게 만나고 또 강의를 할 수 있게 돼서 기쁘다 하는 거고, 그러니까 이 베를린에 있으면서 그 베를린에 빌리브란트 재단 포럼에 전 세계에서 학생들이 오니까 또 이렇게 국제적인 거기에 경험을 하고, 근데 하여간 오늘 우리 그 호펜슈테트 선생님이 지금 이야기해 주시는 거는 독일 통일의 건축사라고 하는 이 빌리브란트에 대해서 그의 이제 아카이브인데 이 빌리브란트 재단에 또 그 재단 아카이브의 그 운영의 원칙은 공개, 그 다음에 투명성과 그 다음에 완전하게 접근할 수 있게 해주는 것, 기록들을 완전하게 그러니까 공개를 해서 완전하게 접근 가능하게 해주는 것, 투명성, 신뢰, 이것이 이제 가장 중요한 원칙이다 이렇게 이야기를 했고, 이 그 브란트 재단, 브란트 재단은 이제 별도로 있는 게 아니라 독일에 사회민주당이 있고, 사회민주당에 이제 여러 정치가들이 있는데 이제 특히 수상을 했거나 그 다음에 이제 국회의원을 하거나 하는 이제 그 정치가들이 있는데, 그 수상을 한 이 3인당 소속 사람이 이 빌리브란트하고 빌리브란트를 이었던 헬무트 슈미트, 이제 나중 사람은 아직 이제 아카이브가 아직 안 만들어졌고, 그 두 사람에 대한 이제 아카이브가 만들어졌는데, 이제 헬무트 슈미트가 이제 3년 전에 돌아가셔서 이제 얼마 전에 아카이브가 만들어졌다. 자, 그런데 이제 여기에서 그 예를 들어서 그 슈미트에 대한 기록을 보면 이제 당시에 슈미트가 이제 우크라이나에 대해서 어떤 입장이었고 또 어떤 관계를 가졌고 이런 걸 볼 수 있는데, 그때 우크라이나는 이제 러시아의 한 부분이었고, 오늘날은 러시아가 이제 독립된 국가로서 러시아하고 이렇게 이제 싸우고 있는데, 그러니까 이제 오늘의 관점에서 본다면 이제 이해하기 힘든 것인데, 하여간 그때의 관점으로 그 기록들을 이렇게 신뢰성 있게 보존해서 이제 그때 상황을 알 수 있도록 그렇게 한다. 자, 아까 이제 그 브란트 아카이브는 그 3인당 정치가들의 여러 아카이브들 중에 하나다 이렇게 이야기를 했고, 이 그 브란트 아카이브가 만들어지는 데 있어서는 이제 그 3인당에서 그 작업을 한 게 있고, 그 3인당의 한 아카이브로 이제 그 다음에 그 브란트의 이제 마지막 아내, 뭐 오늘 그렇게 설명은 안 했지만 이제 이제 이분이 돌아가셨을 때 미망인이 있죠. 이제 오늘 말을 안 한 건데 내가 보충적으로 이야기를 하면 브란트는 여러 차례 결혼을 했어요. 그래서 맨 마지막에 그 결혼했을 때 이제 비서였던 젊은 여성하고 이제 결혼했었는데 이제 그분이 이제 그 브란트에 관한 이제 여러 기록들, 그래서 그 브란트 아카이브를 어떻게 만드느냐에 대해서 그 3인당 내에 의견이 있었고, 요 이제 그 미망인이 또 큰 그 의견이 있었다. 그래서 거기에 충돌이 있었다. 하여간 그것이 중요한데, 그래서 미망인의 의견과 이 그 3인당의 의견이 이렇게 타협하는 쪽으로 간데, 그 미망인의 의견이 굉장히 강해가지고 그게 그 문제가 있었다. 그리고 그 미망인은 지금 자신과 이 아카이브 만드는 것에 대해서 무슨 음해가 있는 것 같다 하는 그러한 문제까지 제기할 정도로 그렇게 됐었다 하는 그 여러분들이 아까 맞췄던가요? 못 맞췄던가요? 아까 브란트 아카이브는 400m라고 그랬죠, 그죠? 이 기록의 저기가. 하여간 아까 볼 때 이제 그 아카이브에서 그 책 시리즈 이렇게 발간하고, 그런데 꼭 그것은 역사만이 아니라 이제 여러 학문에 관한 것인데, 그 책들을 뭐 외교나 이제 여러 어떤 분야에 대해서 할 수도 있고, 그다음에 그 기록의 성질에 따라서 그 기록의 묶음에 의한 어떤 책을 만들기도 하고, 그래서 이제 이걸 기초로 이제 여러 각종의 그 컨퍼런스를 하고 이제 그러는데, 이제 브란트는 이 그 사회주의 인터내셔널인데 이제 3인당 인터내셔널이라고 하는 활동을 했어요. 전 세계적으로. 굉장히 오늘 발표에서 이야기한 건 아니지만 이제 그 활동하면서 우리의 김대중 대통령, 이제 대통령이 되기 전에 어려울 때 많이 도왔었고, 그래서 그 3인당 인터내셔널을 한 그 자료들이 이제 또 국제관계에 이렇게 큰 의미가 있어서 이제 거기에 맞춰서 또 이러한 국제 컨퍼런스들이 이루어지고, 그래서 이제 이 많은 자료들을 디지타이제이션 해 가지고 검색해서 활용하는데, 이제 바로 이제 이 검색을 통해서 김대중과 연결해서 검색할 수도 있고, 아까 우크라이나를 예를 들어서 얘기했는데 우크라이나 따라서 검색할 수도 있고, the rate of digitization 60%였어요. 60%? 한 60% 정도 지금 디지털이제이션이 이루어져. 우리에 비해서 상당히 늦죠, 그죠? 우리보다 조금 미개해요. 자, 우리끼리만 얘기해야 되겠고. 그다음에 이제 베를린 장벽 재단, 그러니까 장벽 재단이 아니고 아까 그 베를린 장벽이 세워지는 거, 베를린 장벽이 세워지는 거, 이제 그게 중요한 역사고, 왜냐하면 그 베를린 장벽이 세워질 때 브란트가 그 서독의 시장이었어요. 그래서 굉장히 시장이었고, 시장으로서 아까 당시 미국의 대통령 그 존 F 케네디에게 편지를 써서 이 문제를 빨리 해결하자. 이 베를린 장벽이 세워지는 요 문제를 해결하자. 왜냐하면 베를린 장벽이 세워지기 전에 동서 베를린은 왔다 갔다 하고 그랬거든요. 이게 장벽이 세워지니까 이제 못 하잖아요. 그게 큰 문제였죠. 그래서 61년에 베를린 장벽이 세워지는데, 그것이 이제 문제인데, 그 서베를린 시장으로서 존 F 케네디하고의 편지 교환 먼저, 그래서 그때의 기록들이 굉장히 중요한 기록이다. 이제 이런 말씀을 해주셨고, 하여간 이 이후에 그 브란트는 소위 말하는 새로운 동쪽으로의 정책하는 이 그 뉴 오스트 폴리틱을 이렇게 추진하는데, 이제 그것들이 또한 중요하고, 그 기록들, 그리고 그 이제 정책 과정에서 나중에 이제 소련의 고르바초프하고의 만남, 그래서 이 정책과 관련해서 고르바초프하고 관련된 기록들이 중요한데, 그래서 그 고르바초프의 아카이브하고 협력하는 거, cooperation with Gorbachev archive, okay? 그 고르바초프 아카이브에 협력해서 거기 가서 또 기록들을 찾고 뭐 이렇게 되겠죠. 그래서 아까 그 본은 서독의 수도였고 베를린은 이제 통일된 독일의 수도인데 이 브란트가 그 뭐야 이 서베를린 시장을 하면서 이제 그 본에 있는 그 서독의 정부 이제 많이 왔다 갔다 했겠죠. 이제 왔다 갔다 하면서 비행기 안에서 손으로 쓴 이 기록들 그래서 아까 그 기록들 보여줬고 그러니까 비행기 안에서 만들어진 이제 손으로 쓴 기록들이 많은데 그 기록들이 또한 중요하고 아까 그 뭐야 그것을 쓴 색깔의 차이들을 이야기했는데 내가 아까 딱 포착을 못했어요. 나중에 알려 드릴게요. 그다음에 이제 그 베를린 장벽이 무너지는 거가 1989년 11월 9일에 베를린 장벽이 무너지는데 베를린 장벽이 무너질 때 아까 브란트 모습을 보여줬잖아요. 이제 그 노인이 된 그래서 그 노인으로서 그 통일을 위해서 노력해 왔고 장벽이 무너질 때 뭔가 그의 그 심정이 보이는 그 사진 그렇게 하고 이제 그 다음에는 그 브란트가 그러니까 히틀러가 1933년에 정권을 잡았을 때 이제 브란트가 아주 소년 청년으로서 그 저항을 위한 이 공지문을 써가지고 그것을 이렇게 공지하면서 이제 본격적으로 저항을 시작한 그거. 그래서 이거 아까 그 오리지널 다큐멘트인데 이제 바로 어떻게 보면 그 투쟁, 그러니까 나치에 대한 저항 투쟁, 망명 생활 문제 이렇게 하면서 나중에 이제 서독의 정치가가 됐던 브란트에 대한 어떤 상징적인 그런 의미고 아까 이제 고등학교 졸업했을 때, 그러니까 고등학교 졸업 자격 시험을 독일에서는 아비투어라고 그러는데 그 아비투어 성적에 대한 아까 그 기록도 보여줬고 이제 하여간 그다음에 뭐 망명할 때 그 패스포트라든가 이제 이렇게 우리가 공개를 원칙으로 하는데 또 사생활에 관계된 것들은 또 데이터 보호를 해야 되고 이제 뭐 이제 그런 측면을 이야기를 하셨고 그다음에 그 항시 전시 그다음에 기획 전시 이제 이런 걸 이야기하셨고 항시 전시 때 브란트가 가지고 다니던 가방 그것이 얼마나 큰 의미를 갖는가 하는 이야기도 강조를 해주셨고 아까 그 케네디가 선물해줬던 게 뭐였죠? 그러니까 두 사람 다 그러니까 브란트가 담배를 아주 그 시가 권련을 아주 잘 피는 사람이었는데 이제 그것에 대한 그 시가 박스를 선물을 했고 아까 만화로 이제 여러 가지 이렇게 그 표시하는 거 그다음에 이제 무엇보다도 그 1970년 12월 그게 정확하게 9일로 내가 기억을 하는데 아까 브란트가 그 폴란드의 바르샤바 그 뭐야 나치 저항했던 유대인 기념탑에 가서 무릎 꿇고 사죄하는 거 이제 이것이 아주 중요하고 관련된 기록들이 중요하다. 그래서 그 무릎 꿇기 그것이 하여간 세계를 울렸고 이것은 하여간 전 세계적인 아이콘이 된 그러한 것이고 거기에 관련된 기록들이 그렇다. 자 이제 이러한 아카이브에 관한 기록들을 가지고 어떻게 사회적으로 의미를 만들 것이냐 이제 그 의미를 만드는 방법의 하나로서 퍼블릭 히스토리, 공공 역사를 이야기해 줬고, 이제 오늘 보여준 것은 그 공공 역사 중에 이제 학생들에 대한 산 교육을 어떻게 하는가 하는 것들을 이렇게 보여줬는데, 그 중에 뭐 우리가 인상적이었던 것은 브란트한테 전화하는 거죠. 전화해가지고 브란트와 대화를 하는데 이제 거기에 이렇게 프로그래밍이 돼 있겠죠. 이제 그런 식으로 해서 아까 어린아이도 브란트한테 전화해가지고 그렇게 하니까 이제 공공 역사의 한 좋은 방법일 것 같아요. 자, 우리도 전화를 하자. 뭐 이렇게. 자, 그다음에 그 어떤 쉐네베르크라고 하는 처음에 그 브란트가 근무했던 거기에서 이제 전시도 하고 이제 이러다가 오늘날 지금 그 운터덴 린덴에 있는 그리 이사해가지고 이제 거기서 본격적으로 전시하고 이제 그래서 거기에서 전시하는 게 이제 공공역사 하는 것이고 이제 여러 를 통해서 그래서 아까는 그 베를린 장벽의 일부를 아까 톱질해가지고 그것을 가지고 또 기록을 왜냐하면 브란트 있을 때 아까 장벽이 세워졌고 또 브란트 아까 장벽이 허물어질 때 브란트가 그 어떤 감회 속에서 이렇게 봤고 모든 사람이 다 그 브란트 영향 속에서 장벽이 무너졌다 할 때 그 베를린 장벽은 굉장히 중요한 브란트 관련해서 기록이라고 볼 수 있겠죠. 그러니까 넓은 의미에서 우리가 박물이라고도 얘기하고 막 하는데 우리가 넓은 의미에서 이제 기록이라고 본다면 또 그걸 가지고 또 퍼블릭 히스토리를 할 수 있겠고 하여간 아까 뭐 기록을 직접 사람들은 손으로 만지기도 하고 뭐 그러면서 이제 마음을 키우고 이게 아마 퍼블릭 히스토리의 중요한 부분일 것 같습니다. 하여간 뭐 우리가 좀 빼먹은 이야기는 나중에 또 이렇게 자세히 글로 써나 뭐 이렇게 하기로 하고 이렇게 정리를 일단 할게요.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, we will proceed more quickly. Yeah. Finally, I'd like to introduce you to Professor Chuno. He is currently a professor in the Department of Information and Archives at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. He will show videos from the Nelson Mandela Archives Foundation and the to demonstrate understanding and learning through VADs.
Hello, this is Chunam Park. Welcome, Professor Verne Harris, Razia Sahle, Dr. Wolfram Hoppenstedt. I was very interested with your presentations, and I learned a lot about the archives of Nelson Mandela and 빌리브란트, two heroes of human history. Thank you very much. Today, I will use videos from both foundations to talk about next generation video archive frameworks and cutting-edge technologies, including AI, to analyze, archiving, create, and service video contents. I'll do a quick demo at the end. These are conceptual terms related to what we'll be discussing in today's presentations. We'll skip explaining them in detail due to time constraints. You may want to read them later. However, the term VADs is important to understand. This is a conceptual acronym for Video as Data Service, which is the next generation video archiving framework. I'm going to talk about the PICO VADs archive framework from the Institute of Information and Archive Studies at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. VADs are a new service paradigm that utilize purely metadata rather than editing videos in the traditional way. In the VADs framework, machines analyze video content to automatically create a topic index, much like table of contents of a book. It also automatically generates topic titles and the keywords that can be used for search. In addition, it is a completely different service paradigm from legacy video service, as new video content can be generated instantly just by searching and aggregating specific topic metadata. As shown in the figure, the VADs framework consists of two technology categories: those that automatically generate the data and those that utilize automatically generated data to provide advanced archive services. Our PICO VADs archive service is platform-oriented. Therefore, it is currently in the prototype stage, but as you can see in the figure, we plan to offer the VAD service to multiple organizations in the future. The VAD example I'm going to show you today was constructed using a video from the Nelson Mandela Foundation archive homepage and a video provided by Dr. Wolfram Hoppenstedt, president of the 빌리브란트 Foundation. As shown in the table, the 10 videos on the Nelson Mandela Foundation archive homepage and the video provided by Dr. Wolfram Hoppenstedt were automatically analyzed using the PICO VADs archive platform features. As shown in the statistics, the videos on the Nelson Mandela Foundation archive homepage have a total playback time and 13 minutes and 24 seconds, and were automatically analyzed and segmented into 18 subtopics. The video provided by Dr. Wolfram Hoppenstedt are 26 minutes and 52 seconds long, and were also automatically analyzed and segmented into 25 subtopics. As you can see in the figure, the data in the VAD service goes through 4 stages. The first step is to automatically extract the video script into text using STT, speech-to-text AI. The second step is to automatically segment the video transcript into subtopics using topic modeling software. The third step is to use ChatGPT to generate the titles and the keywords for each subtopic and automatically summarize the content. These 3 steps fall under the data production category at the 2 technology classifications included in the VADs framework described above. The first step is to build a database with the automatically generated data and operate the VADs to provide video archiving service using metadata. All of the data you see on this screen was automatically generated using a number of technologies and tools over the course of 4 steps, as we just described. The VADs framework is the result of identifying various cutting-edge technologies needed to build a video archive, optimizing them for each use and applying them at the right time. When developing the iPhone, Apple had very little of their own technology that was needed for it. What Steve Jobs did was to take all the cutting-edge technologies developed by other companies that were needed to create a completely new product called the smartphone, optimize them to create a cutting-edge device called the iPhone, and say, one more thing. The PICO VADs framework was built in the same way. This is why we call VADs a framework rather than a specific technology solution name. I call the technology creation and mashup methodology. Now let's do a demo utilizing a VAD service described earlier. The demo scenario is as follows. As explained earlier, We extracted 18 subtopics from 10 videos on the Nelson Mandela Archive homepage. From the Willy-Brandt video, we extracted 25 subtopics. First, in the VAD database built from these subtopics, we find the data corresponding to 1 and 2 step and play only that part of the video on YouTube in real time. I search keyword underground activity. The search returned VAD systems returned one video each of Nelson Mandela and Willy Brandt underground resistance activities. Willy Brandt underground activity are found between 100 and 158 seconds. Nelson Mandela's underground activities are discussed in the first 52 seconds of the video facing down the enemy. Let's play this video.
For much of 1961 and 1962, Nelson Mandela was underground. He was leader of the armed wing of the African National Congress. 1962, he left the country. He was trained as a guerrilla in both Ethiopia and Morocco. We have a picture here, for example.
Willy Brandt's life for sure encompasses one of the most extraordinary biographies against the background of the dramatic German and European.
Right now, these videos are playing in the real time, pulling only the relevant parts of the videos from YouTube. Then we combine the metadata of the corresponding parts of the two videos to create a new video in real time. It's very simple and easy. All we have to do is click the clipping button, and click, and scrap two video clips, scrapped and done. And save this video data set. Let's title Underground Activities of Two Heroes and save it. Now we create a new piece of content with the data set about the parts of the video that relate to the underground resistance movement of two heroes. The new video content generated from this metadata can be retrieved and reused whenever needed in the future. We can search this data set when we need this data set, and we will every time just search and play two videos.
For much of 1961 and 1962, Nelson Mandela was underground. He was leader of the armed wing of the African National Congress. 1962, he left the country. He was trained as a guerrilla in both Ethiopia and Morocco. We have a picture here, for example, of him with Algerian freedom fighters during his period of training with them. He was not so good as an underground operative. You can see a picture of him here wearing that very distinctive beard from that period. Now, his comrades advised him to have that beard shaved off, but he had become quite attached to it. He also liked to visit people. He went to far too many places which weren't really safe, so that tracking him down and ultimately capturing him wasn't too difficult for the apartheid.
Willy life for sure encompasses one of the most extraordinary biographies against the background of the dramatic German and European history of the 20th century.
And if necessary, to attach another clip. This is Billybrandt's Ostpolitik related video clip, and rearrange the video order and update, then create a new video set. Okay. The VADs framework will require many more advanced technology in the future, in addition to those mentioned today for various video types. Our lab will continue to expand the VADs framework and share relevant knowledge. In the future, we hope that activists familiar with the VADs archive framework will be able to create video metadata, and that this will pave the way for a new paradigm of video archive services where endless new meaning are created. Once again, I would like to thank Verne Harris, Razia Sahle, and Wolfram Hoppenstedt for their presentations, and Professor Myung-Han No for providing this valuable learning opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Now it is time for Q&A. If you have any question, please raise your hand, please. Maybe Professor Myung-Han will be hosting this session, so I will pass the microphone over.
근데 잠깐만, 우리가 지금 여기 온라인에 계신 분들하고 저희가 잘 되도록 지금
네.
화면 공유 잘 되고 있나요?
네, 다 보고.
네. 잠깐만요. 그러면 아까 부탁한 대로 질문을 이제 핵심만 이렇게 짧게 그냥 우리말로 질문을 하셔도 되겠고, 여러분 영어로 이미 이렇게 준비를 하셨으니까 영어로 한 것을 이렇게 짧게 읽고 또 우리말로 이렇게 얘기해줘도 되겠어요. 그럼 선생님들이 대답해 주시는 걸 제가 이렇게 번역을 할게요. 그러면 두 분 선생님한테 마이크를.
네, 저희가 전달을 하겠습니다. 네, 네, 손 들어주시면 누구 먼저 하실지. 준비하신 분이 꽤 있다고 들었습니다. 잘 손을 들어주시면. 예, his name is 유명상. 예.
우리 유명상 선생인가요? 잠깐만요. 잠깐만. Okay, let's start.
Today, I heard that many exhibitions using the Nelson Mandela archive have been held. What was the most popular, and why do you think so?
What was the popular exhibition, and what was the reason for that? Do you understand his question?
What was the most popular
exhibition? It's very popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the most popular part of that exhibition wasn't shown, sadly, and it's a more interactive piece, which is particularly designed for younger people, with questions and answers. And yeah, we need to use technology more if we are to reach young people. Those exhibitions, including your one, is like a book on a wall. It doesn't work anymore.
서로 소통하면서 이렇게 진행하는 전시 프로그램이 효과가 있었다. 그리고 특히 이렇게 젊은이들하고 질의응답 소통하면서 이제 그것을 위해서 테크닉을 또 발휘하고 아마 아까 전화로 그렇게 브란트하고 하는 거 그걸 지금 이야기를 또 하시는 것 같아요. 이제 이런 식으로 하는 전시가 효과가 있었다 이렇게 말씀하시는 것 같습니다.
Yeah, she's name is Su-Hyun-sung. Yes.
Just a moment, please.
I'm working as an archivist at the Nomuyeon Foundation, which seeks to remember former Korean President Nomuyeon. The Mandela Archive is an archive that was referred to in many ways during the process of creating the Nomuyeon archives. Thank you for being a good guide. Even if records are organized in the archives and provided to general user, it is difficult for user to understand why the records are important and what their meaning is. Making the meaning of record understandable and explaining why these records are important are being challenges in archive service. How do the Nelson Mandela Archives and the Billy-Brandt Archive solve these problems?
Just a moment, please. Bon. Just a moment, please. Okay. 여러분들은 지금 질문에 대해서 그 번역돼 있는 것이, 그러니까 오리지널 한국어로 돼 있는 그게 있는데 지금 보면서 하는 거죠?
네.
여러분들 다 보면서 하는 거죠? Okay. Okay, yes, please.
Can you answer it? Yes.
Okay, I think the question is how to make the actual records meaningful to the user. So we have what we call in archival terms provenance and original order, and in the modern term, it's metadata. So we try to capture the context in which the document was created or kept, and we give contextual information. And also it's where in the hierarchical relationship to the parent and the child the document is located. So for example, if we're talking about Mandela's desk calendars, each entry would be part of a week and a month, and then finally a year. And that would be the context in which it would have been created. I hope I'm answered your question.
아마 질문하신 분의 그 의도는 이용자가 그 기록의 중요성 또는 그 기록의 의미를 어떻게 하면 잘 알 수 있도록 우리가 기록 관리와 그 서비스를 하는 거냐 하는 것인데, 그다음 이제 일단은 가장 기초적으로는 출처주의하고 원질서 원칙 이걸 통해서 이 그 맥락 유지라고 하는 이제 맥락 속에서 의미 만드는 것이 중요하겠고, 그다음에 그 기록들의 그 위계 질서 이것을 지키면서 정리를 해가지고 또 이 그 맥락들을 또 잘 유지 보존 서비스를 해서 의미를 만든다. 그러니까 일단은 우리가 전통적으로 그냥 이렇게 해오던 방법을 지금 이렇게 말씀을 해주신 것 같아요. 이제 이것을 넘어서는 방법에 대해서는 앞으로 좀 물어보고 또 교류하기로 해요.
Well, contextualization is a good term, I think. We are working on new concepts for our future permanent exhibitions, starting in Lübeck. The next one will be in Berlin, and then the other one in Unkel, where Willy Brandt was born. We have 3 branch offices for our foundation. And you've seen Willy Brandt's passport, the Norwegian passport. And I'll give you an example of a concept, and we just presented it to our boards, to the board of curator, our ideas. Willy Brandt, people are surprised to learn Willy Brandt had to leave Germany, he had to go into exile, he had to flee, so he was an asylum seeker, and he went to Norway, he had no rights, and the Nazis deprived him of his citizenships, and he has no passport anymore. And in our nowadays Germany, we have so many migrants now, and so many foreign people and refugees coming to the exhibition. So what we do is they learn, of course, they have to learn the context about this passport and Willy Brandt's biography, but it started automatically. We have refugees from Syria and from all over places, and they said, hey, this happened to me. I lost my passport, and it's so difficult. And so we try to write down their stories, and they can tell their stories, how they experienced German authorities when you try to get a new passport as a refugee in Germany, and how difficult this is to get the permission to work. Germany, yeah? The status of Willy Brandt, he was in Norway, he was always in danger. The German government in Berlin, the Nazis made pressure on the Norwegian government to extradite him, to expulse him, whatever. Yes, expulse him, yeah, and send him back to Germany, to concentration camp for sure. So this is so contextualization is important. This is an example. This is the passport. No? It tells a story, and people can refer to their own story. What is there a meaning for me? That's an example.
오케이. 우리 호펜슈타트 선생님도 이제 맥락 구성의 중요성을 이제 이야기를 했고, 이제 예를 들어서 어떤 미래지향적 전시라고 하는 게 어떤 한 방법이 될 수 있지 않은가. 그래서 이제 브란트가 태어난 류벡에서부터의 그 브란트의 이야기들, 이제 그 이야기들, 예를 들어서 브란트가 이제 망명을 갔으면 왜 망명을 가야 됐지, 이제 어떻게 갈지 하는 이제 그러한 문제의식 속에서 기록들을 이렇게 구성하고 서비스할 수 있는 이제 이런 것을 이야기하는데, 그렇게 하고 이제 이 망명 동안에 국적도 상실되고 또 패스포트도 이제 또 상실하게 되고, 이제 이러한 이야기들, 이제 이러한 이야기들을 아까 어떤 현재의 이용자하고 이제 연결을 해서 이제 본다면은, 지금 독일의 시리아라든가 이제 여러 곳에서 이제 피난민도 오고 이제 망명자들이 오고, 그런데 이제 그 사람들은 자신들의 일하고 자신들의 상황하고 관련해 가지고 브란트 재단에서 지금 전시하고 뭐 이제 이런 것에 관심을 갖고, 그러니까 망명을 어떻게 가게 됐고, 가서 이제 국적이 상실되고 또 여권이 분실되고, 그럴 때 어떤 일이 벌어지고 또 어떻게 하고, 이제 그런 것들을 또 자기 일하고 연결해서 이렇게 보기 때문에, 그러니까 그 사회의 그 현재적 삶하고 연계해서 우리가 어떤 그 주제별로 기록의 맥락 구성을 해서 이렇게 보여주는 그러한 전시라든가 그 관련한 어떤 기록의 보존 활용, 뭐 이제 이런 식으로 우리가 해볼 수 있지 않는가, 이걸 좀 추가적으로 말씀하셨습니다.
Next, who need a mic? Who need a chance? right? Okay, come on. Should I means you
I'm not, I don't speak fluently, so I'm confused. Hello, my name is Hwang Yoon-hee, and I'm a doctorate in the Department of Records and Information at this university. And I'm teaching records management practice and public history. I believe that the direction of this international conference is to seek to expand the discussion of public history into the archives through the activities and the meaning of the 12 foundations, which can come from the relationship between archives and the public history. In Professor Verne Harris' speech in Duke University, I focused on exploring Derrida's ethics of deconstruction and hospitality as a theory to expand the role of archives. I think this theory will be helpful in expanding public history into the archive area. In some ways, Derrida is misunderstood as an archive deconstructionist, and I would like to hear your opinion on how Derrida's theory can be applied in terms of seeking to expand the role of archives in public history. And I have two questions. The concept of I have a second question. In your speech, you said the concept of a center of memory, centering of memory inclines us to the past, to the meta-narrative, to the energy of declarative, the protecting of the insight. We have to work against this incline. However, in Korea, creating meta narratives through character archives or personal archives is considered very important, and the basic goal is often to discover and expand the person's declarative message. I would like to ask you what it means, especially that the Nelson Mandela Foundation should make efforts to counter the leaning toward the concept of other presidential libraries. So long. Thank you.
These are impossible questions. So for me, Derrida, yes, is one who calls for a hearing of justice. So the work of archive is justice. The standing responsible before the ghosts of the past, the ones who have died, the ghosts of the living, those who are being excluded, are not getting access. So I don't know enough about public history as a discipline to answer your question directly. I think your example of the passport, it demonstrates how the work of an archivist can never be simply technical. It is always about taking a position, interpreting. making the connections and speaking to the realities of now, right? You're taking a political position, actually, while interpreting an old archival document. And that's an obvious example, but we can't avoid doing that. We do that all the time. And I think that the call to us is to be conscious of that and to be very transparent about what we're doing. In terms of that last question, well, I think the disturbing of that censoring, we're doing it in different ways. One of them is to consciously bring other voices into spaces, whether it be in exhibitions or in publications, in the dialogues that we convene. But more importantly for me, it's to be inspired by this archive, to listen to what the people who are being excluded, what they need. And so our organization does work that you might find it difficult to relate to archive. But we go into many communities. We're doing work in the early child development space because that's the call of justice. And this archive inspires us to do the work that we believe is most important now as we try to make a just society. So, you know, for us, the mandate Nelson Mandela gave us is to mobilize archive for the work of justice. So it's working at different levels. You might not have the freedom to do that, the kind of work that we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, Wolfram, you have something? 지금 이 질문에서 우리가 좀 이제 핵심을 그냥 이야기를 해봅시다. 그러니까 지금 센터 오브 메모리, 센터링 오브 메모리, 그러니까 기억 센터, 기억의 중심 또는 기억의 중심화, 여기에 대해서 지금 이제 문제가 제기가 되고 있는 것은 뭐냐면 어떤 기억과 어떤 의미가 한 중심에서 이렇게 이제 확산돼 나가는, 그러니까 중심에서 확산돼 가는, 그러니까 아카이브가 그러한 중심에서 확산을 시키는 역할에 대해서 지금 넬슨 만델라 재단은 문제 제기를 하고 있다. 지금 이렇게 보겠는데 우리 질문자의 입장에서는 지금 한국에서는 지금 그러한 확산의 역할 자체가 지금 중요한 것으로 아직까지는 되고 있다. 지금 그거 아니었는가? 예. 자, 그러니까는 우리 그 해리스 선생님이 지금 말씀하신 거, 그러니까 넬슨 만델라 재단에서 이 그 센터가 하는 일은 안에서 만들어서 이렇게 확산시켜서 이렇게 갖게 하는 게 아니라 소통과 그러니까 커뮤니케이션과 다이알로그와 이제 이런 것이 중요하고, 그리고 아카이브는 지금 어떤 정보를 필요로 하고 또 어떤 그 필요성의 사람들이 있고 이제 거기에 맞춰서 하고 그러한 이 그 소통과 이런 것이 가능할 수 있는 아카이브, 그러니까 지금 아카이브에서는 가지고 있는 것들이 어떻게든지 모두에게 액세스 될 수 있게 하는 게 가장 중요하고 그게 가장 just, 공정한 아카이브고 그것이 정의라고 하는 것, 누구에게나 그것이 접근 가능해야 되고 그것이 소통 가능해야 되고, 그러니까 아카이브에서 무슨 의미가 만들어져서 확산되고 뭐 이런 게 아니라 아카이브는 서로 소통되고 이렇게 하는, 그러니까 즉 기존의 것들도 해체를 시키고 해체를 누가 시키는 게 아니라 소통을 통해서 그러면서 계속 의미가 만들어지는 이제 그런 의미에서 어떤 센터 오브 메모리, 센터링 오브 메모리는 어떤 과거에 대해서 어떤 어떤 메타적인 스토리나 의미를 만들어서 확산시키는 거, 이제 여기에 뜻을 두는데 넬슨 만델라 재단에서는 이제 그런 쪽이 아니라 이런 이제 그런 의미에서 데리다의 해체와 아까 썼던 환대라고 하는 개념을 사용해서 한다. 여러분 어떻게 좀 질의 대답 이게 좀 저기 될까요? 정리가 될까요? 예, I think they understand.
Could you have any question? Okay.
네. I'm Jun Seok-won. I study as a master at the Free University of Berlin right now in public history. And also in context of the public history, I have a question to Dr. Hoppenstedt. Darf ich auf Deutsch erstmal fragen, weil ich ja, also 혹시 제가 영어를 안 쓰지 너무 오래 해서 혹시 독일어로 먼저 질문하고 한국어로 번역을 될까요? 죄송합니다. 네. Also ja, meine Frage ja im Kontext der Public History, welche Bildungsangebot für Schülerinnen und vielleicht Studierende an der bei der Brandforum gerade, also, und was ist das Ziel dabei? Beispielsweise, ich denke, die wesentliche Rolle der Archiv heutzutage ist auch die Bildungsangebot und Bildungsmaterial als nicht nur für die nicht nur historische oder geschichtliche Information oder biografische Information für den von Brand, sondern so im Kontext der Public History soll die Geschichte in heutigen Gesellschaft wieder diskutiert werden und neu angewendet werden. Also beispielsweise wie das Biografie von Willy-Brandt werden das Problem der Asyl und Refugees heutzutage wieder wieder genutzt werden. Und ja, und in diesem Kontext, was ist das Ziel der Bildungsprogramme bei heutzutage, also für Schülerinnen und Studierende?
Okay. Please, Wolfram. 한국어로 조금.
네, 공공역사에서는 역사가 단순히 기록되고 문서화되는 것만큼이나 이제 이것이 교육적 가치로 활용되는 것도 굉장히 중요합니다. 왜냐하면 역사라는 것이 단순히 논의되는 것을 넘어서 현 시대의 사회에서 다시 한번 이야기되고 그 안에서 중요한 가치들이 다시 사회에서 논의됐고 그다음에 새로운 가치들을 향해서 새로운 가치들을 만들어가기 위해 사용되는 것이 굉장히 중요하다라고 여겨지기 때문에 예를 들어서 발표 중에 말씀하신 것처럼 빌리브란트의 생애나 아니면 이야기들이 난민 문제와 연결돼서 독일 사회에서 다시 이야기되고 논의되고 새로운 난민 문제에 대한 새로운 해결책을 위해서 논의된 것들처럼 퍼블릭 히스토리에서는 이와 같이 그 역사를 단순히 기록하고 책 안에서 놔두는 것보다 역사의 가치를 어떤 학생들이나 아니면 그곳을 찾아오는 방문객들에게 역사적 교육적 자료로서 제공하는 것이 굉장히 중요하기 때문입니다. 이런 맥락에서 빌리브란트 포럼에서 현재 진행되고 있는 그 교육 목적의 프로그램들이 어떤 것들이 있는지 그리고 그 중심에는 어떤 가치들이 있는지 질문드리고 싶습니다.
Okay, Paul and Razia. After session, we will translate.
Well, yes, you will. I guess so. Well, thank you so much. Well, it's about Willy Brandt's biography and learning about German history. This is our major task. Because if we don't learn about our history, we might make the same mistakes. And the Germans did some serious mistakes in their history and things went wrong. So we have to understand our history and learn about it. But it is more you can learn through the life of Willy Brandt. And this is that freedom is not for free, that the freedom is always in danger. There's always a danger for our democracy. right now. We have those ultra-nationalist right-wing parties coming. Also in Germany, we have one now in parliament, and they get stronger and stronger. And so what we do is we have many school classes coming to our exhibitions, and we have workshops for them. And for example, they learn about how important this is to offer resistance if it's necessary. And also we, especially the Willy-Brandt house in Lübeck, so far, it's a special place for school classes. And it's there are workshops for democracy. So they learn how democratic decisions are made. They learn to, okay, this is one thing. They learn how it came to Ostpolitik, how it was disputed, and how it was supported at last. But also they simulate processes. For example, they make their own decisions and have to find solutions. So there are certain spin-offs, and well, for the future. Oh yeah, and we have, for example, we have in Lübeck, we have a room on human rights, because Willy Brandt strived for democracy and human rights everywhere in the world. And see, we have those the 48 rights, and you can have freedom to move, freedom of religion, and anything of property. And we have cubes, and you can, and by the way, you can move these cubes, and you see a little to a certain spot in the room, and then a film starts and makes a short introduction about the importance of this human right. And then we have workshops, and the pupils are asked, okay, now you pick whatever you pick a cube, and you what is important for yourself, which right, human right, and then they're supposed to explain it. This is my human right, and I possess it, and it's so important to me. Why? So it's not about human rights, it's about democracy building, learning how democracy can be lived, and always has to be saved. And yeah, so it's more than just about Willy Brandt. Yeah, did I help you?
그 독일 사람들이 보면 역사에서 많은 잘못들을 했습니다. 그 잘못한 것들을 잊지 않고 그 잘못으로부터 배우는 것이 중요한데, 예를 들어서 자유라고 하는 것이 좋은 것만이 아니라 그게 이제 위험성을 가지고 있고, 또 민주주의라고 하는 것도 좋은 것만이 아니라 위험성도 가지고 있고, 나치당은 분명히 그 독일의 민주주의 체제 속에서 그 공식적으로 이 정권을 잡았고, 그러면서 이제 약간 문제를 많이 일으킨 거죠. 이 빌리브란트 그 파운데이션 포럼에 특히 이제 학생들이 많이 오고 그 아카이브 자료들을 가지고 이제 워크숍을 하고, 그런데 특별히 그 브란트가 태어난 류벡에 그 브란트 하우스가 만들어져 있고, 이제 거기에서 이제 워크숍을 하는데, 그러니까 브란트가 추진한 동서독 화해 정책, 이제 그런 것들이 어떻게 실시됐고, 또 어떤 의미를 만들어 갖고 이제 그런 것을 이렇게 시뮬레이션을 해가면서 그렇게 하고, 그러니까 이런 것을 통해서 민주주의, 인권, 뭐 이제 이런 문제들을 직접 생각하고 공부하고 그렇게 하게 하는데, 예를 들어서 그 1948년 그 세계 인권 선언 이런 것들이 어떻게 해서 이러한 그 독일이 잘못을 많이 하던 독일이 새롭게 이렇게 민주주의 국가로 가고 그 동서독 화해를 해 나가고 이런데 그 과정이 이루어졌나, 이제 이런 것들을 아까 그 시뮬레이션을 통해 가지고 이렇게 하는데, 그 시뮬레이션을 할 때 그 아카이브를 가지고 이렇게 하고, 이제 이런 의미에서 퍼블릭 히스토리라고 하는 것이 의미가 있다고 생각한다. 이렇게 했어요. 그러니까 뭐 나중에 또 조금 보완적으로나 또 저기 할 수 있는 것은 나중에 또 하기라고. 원군 어떻게 여기까지 이렇게 됐을까요? 오케이.
오케이. 굉장히 나이스한 인포메이션이었습니다. 땡큐입니다. 혹시 다음 질문자가 있으시면 선생님 혹시 2번을 드셨기 때문에 제가 마이크를
It's an honor to meet you. I'm Lee Jae-yoon.
hello. 짧게.
First of all, thanks for sharing the principles of the Billy-Brandt archive. It was so interesting. The thing that foundation's concern for society was the Nelson Mandela Foundation is also impressive to me, for me, especially the archives that were open to other voices. However, it is difficult to imagine that conversations between people with various perspectives can occur within an archive space, especially in the case of historical archives such as the May 18 archive in Korea. Actually, office workers in the archives are afraid to open the records due to various problems, practical problems. So what I want to ask is, from your perspective, what are the essential conditions for an archive to be safe space for conversation with citizens and to be open to other voices? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. These are all very difficult questions. First of all, I don't think there is a safe space. So I think the challenge really is to ensure that archive is a space of contestation. And then the challenge is how you hold that contestation. So if you come to the Nelson Mandela Foundation and you just hear one voice, one interpretation, one narrative, then it's a problem. And it's the same, I would think, in the Willy Brandt's space. You're wanting there to be different views. So an example, and it's contestation is not easy. It's challenging, it's hard. So Nelson Mandela's second wife, Winnie Mandela, they divorced. He wasn't very good at marriage. He had to try 3 times. But when Winnie Mandela died, in the week after she died, we hosted a dialogue at the Center of Memory. We had a panel of 4 women speaking very angrily about how her story had been dominated by the Nelson Mandela story and talking about his patriarchy and saying things that were very hard for us to hear in the Nelson Mandela space. I think I'm giving you a sense of what contestation can look like and the challenge to all of us to welcome contestation. The real challenge is, how do you manage that? And how do you enable people to feel safe enough to contest space, especially sacred space? Stop there, thank you.
자, 다양한 목소리들이 서로 경쟁하게 한다 하는 게 이게 쉬운 문제 아니죠. 그런데 하여간 그 다양한 목소리들이 경쟁하게 해야 되는데 이제 다양한 목소리들이 경쟁한다고 하는 것은 기록에 대한 다양한 해석들이 또 그 기록에 기초한 다양한 서사들이 어느 하나가 주어지는 것이 아니라 아까 우리 황 선생 질문에 대한 답하고도 이렇게 관계가 되겠어요. 그러니까 그 어느 하나에 대한 어느 하나로 그것이 확산되는 게 아니라 그 다양한 것들이 서로 경쟁하면서 이제 거기서 엮어지고 이렇게 하는 것인데 그게 쉬운 일은 아니겠는데 해야 할 일이다. 이렇게 하고 넬슨 만델라 재단에서는 그것을 가장 중요하게 여긴다. 그 두 번째 안에인 그 비니 만델라가 타계했을 때 이제 세미나를 열고 그래서 여러 토론회의를 하고 그랬는데 그때 네 분의 여자분이 참여해서 토론을 하고 그랬는데 그분들이 이제 화가 나서 하는 말들이 뭐였냐면 왜 넬슨 만델라에 관한 여자를 이야기하면 비니 만델라 이야기만 이렇게 있고 이제 그러냐니까 그게 왜 이렇게 도미넌트한 문제 그런 것이냐 이제 이렇게 됐는데 하여간 아까 공정한 아카이브 이야기 나왔었잖아요. 그러니까 이러한 공유, 공정한 공유, 그다음에 소통 그리고 그러한 다양한 해석과 서사 이제 결국 다양한 목소리들이 서로 소통하고 만나게 하고 하는 게 중요한데 이렇게 하면 딱 된다 할 만큼 그렇게 지금 얘기할 수 있는 것은 아니고 쉽지는 않은데 하여간 그것을 추구해 가고 있는 얘기고 우리 같이 노력을 해야 될 것 같습니다. 될까요?
괜찮으시다면 this is my last chance. Last question, right? Okay, Jinny Wu. His name is Jinny Wu.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jin-hee Woo, and I'm a student here. And now I'm helping on organizing requests as a volunteer at the Park Chung-chul Center. Park Chung-chul is a democratization activist in the 1980s. I have big question, but like simple. Yeah. It's similar to his question, so I already hear from the Billy-Brandt. So I believe that records about the person produced in the past are in an important medium for remembering and reducing that time. While I'm working, I thought, how can we pass the meaning of these records about democracy to the next generation? How can we communicate with the next young generation and future generation thought records? So my question is, could you please introduce what specific work, especially for next generation, can be done at the humanitarian foundation like Nelson Mandela and Willy-Brandt Foundation. So it's including the exhibition. This is my question.
No.
우진이 본인의 질문의 핵심을 다시 한 번만 핵심만 얘기해 볼까? 알고 싶은 게 뭔지.
Could you please introduce your work, your foundation's work especially for next generation? Using some records about like 20s. Oh yeah. Teenager or children.
Verne, don't be angry. It's collecting of different voices and the contestation of different voices and okay.
I think the answer to this question is the first step always is that you listen to that generation. And they will tell you what they need from you.
It's very important.
No, let me just say that because I think certainly in our context in South Africa, those of us who are older, and especially those of us who participated, Razia participated more than me in the struggles against apartheid. We speak to young people in a didactic way, that we are older and wiser, we have something to teach you. And we don't do very much listening. And I think if we changed that around, it would liberate that archival space, and it would make that space a dialogical, where older generations, the archivists, the interpreters, are actually engaging creatively and listening. And then you begin to co-create with this younger generation.
Yeah, I often quote the law for the erection of the Federal Chancellor Willy-Brandt Foundation. Sometimes I have to do it with regard to my colleagues to remind them what is our job also. And we have the job to memorize Willy Brandt in his lifelong struggle for democracy, freedom, for the unification of the German people, and for reconciliation between the people, and for the North-South dialogue. Okay, today, when we talk about the next generation, Mandela will never be forgotten in South Africa. I'm quite sure. The young people who come to us, they've mostly never heard about Willy Brandt. I mean, he was Chancellor 50 years ago now. Huh? And so this is a job. Of course, we still have to commemorate and relate his biography. But when we take another look at his heritage, and this is interesting for this young generation, for the next generation, as he was one of the first person worldwide to use or to introduce the word globalization in the early 80s. He wrote a Brandt report. This was his work in the first place, the North-South report. And I mean, he had a one world view, and he argued very early that mankind can only survive together. And in face of the challenges we have with climate change and many other challenges, and this is so up to date now, and so it's good we can say, look at Willy Brandt and what he said. And I often say this heritage is the most important heritage of him, the one world view. And because the Ostpolitik, of course, this was important, but this was made under special East-West relations in the Cold War in Europe. You cannot apply it exactly to Koreans today. But this one world view is important. So this is how we have to approach to address the young people of today with these ideas.
지금 아까 해리스 선생님이 다음 세대에 물어보자 그렇게 하고, 다음 세대가 뭐라고 답하는지 듣자 이렇게 했는데, 우리가 다음 세대에 생각하는 거 뭐 하는 것을 우리가 결정해서 다음 세대를 위해서 이렇게 하는 게 아니라 다음 세대에게 물어보자. 그러니까 우리가 결정해서 아카이브를 통해서 누구한테 나눠주는 게 아니라, 아카이브는 듣는 곳이고, 들어서 우리는 또 이렇게 소통하는, 그러니까 듣는 장소, 소통하는 장소, 공간. 그러니까 아까 계속 말씀하시는 여러 다른 목소리들이 만남 뭐 이런 것인데, 여러분 오늘 우리가 듀크 대학에서 했던 연설 오늘 다시 봤는데, 거기 이렇게 뒷부분에 보면은 뭐가 나오냐면, 서로 아주 서로 입장이 달라가지고 서로 말하기가 어려운 이제 그런 사람들을 이 넬슨 만델라 재단에 와서 한 테이블에 앉아서 그 불편한 이야기들을 할 수 있게 만드는 이제 그러면서 또 자유롭게 그게 이야기가 될 수 있는 어떤 그런 환경을 만드는 그래서 어떤 우리 같으면 국가정보원 같은 이제 그런 데서는 어떤 기밀 유지법이라고 하는 것을 만들려고 했고 그것은 정보자유법이라고 하는 것하고 이렇게 배치가 되고 이제 그 정보자유법하고 배치가 된다고 하는 것은 지금 이렇게 서로 소통하는 곳으로서의 아카이브를 만들려고 하는 것하고도 배치가 되고 그런데 하여간 그러한 노력들을 통해 가지고 기밀 유지법이 원래 만들어지려고 하는 대로 안 되게 하는데 영향을 미친 것도 거기에 나오고 그런데 그러니까 하여간 여러분 아카이브라고 하는 것은 우리가 뭐 정보를 만들어서 제공해 주는 것이 아니라 어떻게 보면 듣는 곳이고 그 들음이 서로 소통되고 거기에서 말이 나오고 대답이 나오고 하게 하는 오늘 그걸 굉장히 강조해 주신 것 같아요. 그러니까 다음 세대에 물어보자. 이거 굉장히 중요한 것 같습니다. 어디 우진이 동의하는가요?
네.
오케이. 그리고 우리 지금 호펜슈테트 선생님은 그러니까 이 헤리티지를 이야기를 하셨는데 브란트 헤리티지에서 가장 중요한 게 이제 브란트 자신이 굉장히 다이알로그를 중시한 그러니까 동서독의 다이알로그를 중요했고 젊은 시절에 그가 히틀러 나치를 반대해서 투쟁하고 할 때도 민주주의인데 민주주의에서는 다이알로그 그러니까 브란트가 중요시하는 것은 우리가 함께 살아야지 함께 살지 못하면 우리 개인들도 생존을 못한다. 그러니까 서로 함께 소통하면서 이렇게 살아야 된다. 그래서 브란트는 나중에 잘 사는 북반구하고 못 사는 남반구하고의 또 대화를 위해서 남북 대화를 위해서 노력을 많이 하고 그랬는데 그렇다 보면은 우리가 브란트한테서 배울 수 있고 브란트 아카이브에서 헤리티지로 만들어서 우리가 공유할 수 있는 것이라고 하는 것은 바로 이런 다이알로그 이런 것일 텐데 바로 이제 이런 헤리티지를 공유하게 하는 것이 아카이브의 빌리브란트 재단 아카이브의 의무 아닌가 이렇게 말씀을 하시는 것 같습니다. 예. 우리 박수.
Yeah. Very long time. Unfortunately, it is time to finish today's seminar. Thank you for joining today. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's continue our dialogue. Okay, among Billy Nelson Mandela, and the students of our university.